We are starting soon. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. And it seemed like we had some short issues at the beginning of this webinar, but let's hope that it will now continue smooth your journey through cybersecurity for protection engineers. It is planned as a small series of webinars around cybersecurity. Today, we will focus on the configuration around the SIPROTEC 5 device, and the next one starting on May the 9th, that will happen around the CCAM A8000. I think some of you might already know me. I am Michaela Mönikers, sometimes a tour guide on the Siemens booth, sometimes a communications engineer around microgrids, and today your guide through this webinar. You see two experts mentioned for this webinar series. So I already mentioned on May the 9th, March the 9th, we will see Georg Merkel, who knows about cybersecurity around the CCAM 8000. And today you will soon see François Simon with me talking about cybersecurity around the SIPROTEC 5 device. We want to make this a vivid and a valuable webinar for you. And therefore, please type your questions to the experts in the questions field. I will be your voice before each of the breaks we planned, and I will read your question to the expert here in the studio. And talking about the expert here in the studio, I welcome here on stage with me my dear colleague, Dr. François Simon. François is definitely an experienced protection engineer, or not only protection control engineer, with a deep knowledge on communication and security. And you will see that throughout the webinar. François will share his knowledge on cybersecurity standards and configuration for SIPROTEC 5 devices. So I think people by now are curious to learn and how to configure such a device. So François, the stage is yours.
Yes, thank you, Michaela. Welcome to the webinar for cybersecurity and electrification and automation for power system. Our topic today is cybersecurity in secondary product like protection relay, SIPROTEC 5, for protection engineers. The presentation will give you the possibility to understand the three main security features recommended for substation automation and protection system. The security event log or syslog, the role-based access control, and the secure communication. My intention is to show you how easy it is to activate security feature in SIPROTEC 5. First, I will introduce the protection device in the environment, mainly called secure substation. Then I will talk about the easiest feature called syslog. After that, I will explain in a simple way what is TLS used for encryption everywhere as main state-of-the-art feature. The third part is related to role-based access control, or airbag, with central managed user using the protocol LDAP-S. And at last topic, will be how to use and configure secure or encrypted communication in SIPROTEC 5 with a focus on secure MMS. From a cybersecurity point of view, protection device must be considered as an integral part of the secure substation or secure substation solution. Maybe you already heard about the secure substation blueprint. If not, we at Siemens, we focus on the standard, and one of them is the IC 62443, the cybersecurity standard for any kind of automation system, including protection and control system for electrical substation. And according with this requirement, we validate with the TÜV a best practice architecture for substation automation. These include aspects such as network segmentation, access control and account management, logging, and others. today we will cover some aspects that are especially relevant for cybersecurity of this protection relay. At the end, the goal is of all of these measures is to ensure the availability and integrity of the protection relays. That is why we also will learn for each feature in the device the counterpart in the secure substation that will interact with the device. Considering security logging, the protection device will interact with the so-called syslog server. If we consider access control and account management, the protection device will interact with the so-called central Active Directory, managing the user, password, and roles. Considering the data protection with secured communication, we need to create so-called certificate with the encryption key within using the certificate manager. SIPROTEC 5, but also our automation product like HITECNSOL or HITECNPass have already integrated cybersecurity feature by design. Some of them to be activated via configuration, and some of them are inbuilt in the device to have peace of mind. As first feature, our firmware is signed with a Siemens certificate, and this is the main protection feature against malware protection. And the device integrates firewall rules that do not need to be changed via configuration. For the next feature, you have to configure the connection to the partner in the device. Security event information are stored in non-volatile persistent memory and transferred over syslog protocol to a syslog server. Airbag with central user management in an Active Directory are realized with role predefined in the IC 62351-8. The communication between protection device and the central user system is LDAP-S, and the roles are defined securely in certificates. And finally, with secure communication, to avoid that an attacker can change the content of the information exchanged, are protected with a TLS feature. TLS stands for Transport Layer Security, where we need to configure certificates. And we at Siemens, we make it easy with the tool SICAM GridPass to manage the secure key with certificates. In summary, with the secure substation, we have seen that the protection device have to interact with other IT component. And this is important to understand for the engineer of the cybersecurity feature in the device. Let us jump directly in this first simple feature called syslog. By default, security rival logs are stored locally in the device. In addition, those logs can also be sent via the network using the syslog protocol. In this example, show a field engineer who is loading a new configuration to a SIPROTEC 5 device. This will immediately create a log message, which will be sent out via the syslog protocol to a syslog server. The syslog server collects and stores the security relevant logs from all components of a system, including firewall logs and Windows event logs. In addition, this log message can also be sent to a SIEM system for further analysis. SIEM stands for Security Information and Event Management. The SIEM system can raise alerts in case of suspicious activities, for example, unplanned configuration change in the SIPROTEC relay. Now let us look how logging is easily activated with the engineering tool DIXI. You can see that the engineering software DIXI 5 is open and our project has been loaded. In the section Safety and Security, Security Event Logging, you can activate syslog. You have to define the IP address of the syslog server, the communication port, and the communication module that shall be used to send out the syslog information. You can optionally also configure a second syslog server for redundancy. Let me explain the demo environment. As syslog client, we have SIPROTEC 5 device. Not as physical device, but as virtual device, the so-called SIPROTEC 5 digital twin. Also for you as customer, you can access and get an access to a one-to-one simulation of the SIPROTEC 5 device in the cloud. And as syslog server, we simply use a Windows freeware called Visual Syslog Server. The digital twin and my PC are protected via a virtual private network. And clear, I also have DIXI 5 installed on my PC to activate the settings for the cybersecurity feature. And via HTTPS, I can access the web page of the SIPROTEC 5 device. Here I'm in the digital twin. And under project, I can select one or more devices to be simulated. And I have clicked on Simulation. When I navigate to the tile Device, now I can see the device simulated in a real device with front display, for example. Then I start the freeware Visual Syslog server. With a browser, I can connect to the device via the web UI. And also when role-based access control is not enabled, I can see a syslog message saying a user has initiated a remote session. The IP address of my PC is indicated in the message. And the message has the timestamp of the event in the device. So I really know who, what, and when a security event happens. Let's see if I can demonstrate it live and come back later to the slide. Yes, now my SIPROTEC device is running as digital twin. So I see that I have configured in DIXI here under security event logging. I have configured the IP address of my Visual Syslog server, the port, and only that I have to do. And if I want, I can do also send it to a redundant server. So when I open here my Visual Syslog server, I see some syslog message. And for example, when I go to my SIPROTEC device via the web UI, I can log in to this device here without role-based access control. So I will get here the last message here from now. Here, a user has initiated a remote session from my IP address and with a timestamp from exactly now. Okay, I can also demonstrate if you do some change in the device. Maybe, for example, with a digital twin, you also can simulate the front display. You can log in here with your confirmation IDs. And, for example, navigate to the settings. For example, here, changing some time delay or threshold. Change it from 1.6 to 1.50, for example. And now you have to confirm that you want to make the change, confirm it with OK. And the configuration is changed. And you see here in real time here the syslog message coming in, the syslog server that someone has changed the configuration setting are changed with a timestamp. Okay, so let's go back to the steps. Before we go to the next agenda point, I also want to show you how it is possible to activate the syslog protocol over TLS. Why it could be required to secure or encrypt the syslog message. IT people and security experts expect that hacker could be able to manipulate the clear text syslog message sent from the device in a non-protected environment, or remember the secure substation architecture in case the syslog server is outside the secure zone. The encryption via TLS will be the next topics that I want to explain after the summary of syslog. Syslog in summary. Syslog is simple to activate in our device. You only need the IP address of the syslog server, and syslog is easy to test with some freeware. Syslog is a basic for cybersecurity, for substation protection and automation system, and also for IT device. In case of an attack, you are able to quickly analyze who, what, and when. Attacker will work invisible in the dark. Syslog is a light to see what happens. That is why it is recommended in the IC 62443. And optionally, it can be encrypted via TLS as recommended in the IC 62351. Now let us introduce TLS and certificates, because it will be used for all the other features that we want to present. Features like airbag and secure communication are based on TLS to encrypt the communication. TLS stands for Transport Layer Security. TLS is the IT standard for secure communication with certificate. TLS is used every day whenever you are in the internet getting information from a web server via HTTPS, where S stands for TLS. That is why it's recommended in the IC 62443 and IC 62351 in a secure substation environment. Let us remember the principle of TLS that stands for Transport Layer Security. Let us have the analogy in the Middle Age, where kings, princes, and lords want to exchange secret message. First of all, to exchange an encryption key and need to be protected from the enemy. They put the encryption algorithm or encryption key in an envelope and secure it with a seal. When the partner receives a message, he will check if the seal pattern is part of the list of trusted seals. And if you want to trust your partner, he also have to send the encryption code inside an envelope protected by his own seal. When you receive the message, you will check if the seal pattern is part of the list of the trusted seal. And now let us have the analogy with the IT world for this old concept. The seal is in IT system the certification authority, or abbreviation CA. The list with the seal pattern is a CA repository or CA store, trusted CA store. The envelope with the encryption key is a so-called X509 certificate issued by one of the trusted CA. In case the two partners request a certificate, this mechanism is called mutual authentication or client-server authentication. And we have to mention an important piece of the TLS puzzle. It's the PKI, or Public Key Infrastructure, where CCAM Grid Bus play this role. CCAM Grid Bus can create CAs, can create, sign and manage X509 certificate, and much more, like managing automatically certificate via EST protocol. We use TLS every day when connect with a browser to an internet page. Our browser is a so-called TLS client, and the web server a TLS server. We present a certificate issued by a CA or a CA chain. For example, via the internet link SIPROTEC digital twin siemens.com. We act as a digital twin web page or server protected by a TLS in the cloud. Our browser will show the closed lock icon, which means the connection is secure because the issuer CA is known in the CA repository. And then you can see the certificate with X509 define attributes like serial number, signature algorithm, and also the issuer of the CA that have signed this certificate. And if you look in your Windows system with the user certificate manager, you can find in the trusted root certification authority the corresponding root CA. Why should we talk about TLS? Because it's used as a state-of-the-art method for encryption. And we have implemented this everywhere in SIPROTEC 5 where data integrity is necessary. For the engineering tool Dixie, the communication protocol is encrypted via TLS with mutual authentication. For the access to the web page, HTTPS is encrypted via TLS with server authentication. In case syslog message want to be protected from manipulation, TLS can also be applied. We will see as next that it is also a good idea to protect the check of the user and password with a central airbag with a protocol called LDAP-S, where S stands also for TLS. And clear TLS is used to encrypt the communication protocol IEC 6250 MMS. We also implement the automated certificate management as recommended in the IEC 62341-9. And the protocol there is called EST, that stands for Enrollment over Secure Transport. And it's based on TLS with mutual authentication. Clear TLS theory is much more complex if you want to understand the mathematical encryption algorithm, but that is not our goal. Much more important for engineering point of view is to remember the story of the certificate as an envelope that is signed with a seal, and that the counterpart need to know the pattern of the seal to accept and trust this information in the certificate. Before we continue, let us make 5 to 10 minute breaks and give you the opportunity to see your question and prepare the answers.
Thank you. And there are already a lot of questions coming in, François. Now let's see how we can arrange that. I like that we have this protection device over here. So that's the hardware we talk about. And now let's jump into the questions. I think some of them had already been answered in the chat, like the ones around recordings and things like that. Yes, if you cannot join the whole webinar, no problem. Join us later, follow the link you will receive, and then just watch the recording of it. But now let's go into technical questions. So BH already mentioned likes to know how the different equipments in which we will work. I think we will see that throughout the webinar. So that'll be part of the whole webinar, the answer to that information. And then KK wanted to know right at the beginning, what are the measures used for system hardening? And I think you already mentioned some of them, right?
Yes, as I mentioned, the system hardening is, we have integrated feature that is first of all the firewalls. The firewalls are already pre-configured. Only the functions that you need, then the port of the firewall is open for this feature. By default, all the ports are closed. But for example, you use Dixie, the port for Dixie is open, and use HTTPS, also this is open, or any other protocol you use, only these are open, and this is one of the basic functionality of a firewall. And also to protect again some man-in-the-middle attack, we also supervise the data flow and on the internet connection, and check that we do not have an overflow of requests on this communication interface, to do not avoid that the device only occupied with Ethernet questions.
Yeah,
because the main feature is protection, and always the priority is on protection, and avoid to have any overflow of communication via the communication module.
All right, thanks. And then SK wants to know, does the SIPROTEC or do the SIPROTEC devices have certifications, for example, according to IEC 27001 or IEC 62443-3? And you're already nodding. Perfect.
Yes, clear. We have the certification. We, with our, as mentioned, the secure substation architecture is validated by the TÜV. So TÜV is a most known for cars, but it's also, they also certified a system like secure architecture, because they have the knowledge of all this what is written in the standard, and they asked to have exactly understand how we propose a solution for our system to make it in a secure substation. So we have the certificate, and we can provide the link to the certificate in the chat afterwards.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Or even part of the presentation, I think, something like this. So is there any specific software requirement to be installed on a syslog server? That was a question from MK.
Now, from the protection device point of view, you do not have to do anything. So you activate the feature. So the SIPROTEC device will send the syslog message via the port, what is specified. And from the syslog server point of view, if you have a syslog server, you only, it's a UDP protocol, so you get all the message from the devices. only if you want to go to a TLS protected environment, there you have to set or to define the certificate to communicate encrypted.
Mm-hmm. Quite interesting stuff, but I need to admit I understand around half of it. That's why I have an expert here, and I'm happy about that. And talking about the syslog server, I think the next question that came in from HM goes into the same direction, and it was one of the rather early questions. And HM wants to know, does the syslog freeware, or can the syslog freeware be downloaded by the customer and be installed at the customer IT server as kind of their own syslog server?
We see this small freeware what I show you. Okay, you can also use it, but normally your IT have other tools to collect that. And in our secure substation, we also recommend to use NXLog. It's another software, more professional one that you can install. And we also, if you buy a secure substation at Siemens, and our engineer will configure or propose your secure substation concept. So the NXLog will be part of the software what is currently used.
Okay, so syslog is just one small freeware, but we deliver and we suggest a more comprehensive one.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's already there on customer sites because their IT delivers something for this protocol mechanisms. Okay, thank you for the clarification there. And then it's a question coming from DM around the function points. Why creating the ordering code of a SIPROTEC 5? It shows the function point requirement for cybersecurity. So for example, 25. And then 802.1x requirement with probably additional 10 function points. Do we need both function points or function point amounts if we do not need LDAP?
Or if you do not need LDAP, you don't need the function point.
Okay, so then you can just reduce the number again and use them for a different
features.
Feature, yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's cool around those function points, but that was a different webinar. And so then GB wanted to know, in log message, it is not mentioned what kind of change is meant to the is made to the configuration. Is there at least a small description?
Yes, a syslog message have to inform about that change was made, but do not have to protocol exactly what has been changed, because this message can be used by an attacker to say, okay, here with this information I can reuse this information. So the syslog message are like that you know that something happens, but do not navigate all that. So it's the same if you make a wrong logging to your PC, the syslog message is please do not type your name Monica.
So
it's only I said, okay, something is going wrong, but not exactly what.
Yeah, fully understand, because sometimes with the answer you reveal the question or vice versa. Yeah, that's true. And then WB wants to know, as a manufacturer of small substation devices, would you recommend some companies helping to implement the IEC 62443 and the 62351? So likewise, according to testing 61850 and 62351.
Yes, that is part of our service, of our engineering. That if you ask us about the dimensioning of this of the substation where secure or the secure cybersecurity feature are relevant, so we can help you to create your secure substation with the knowledge of what attack can be happens, for what feature is it relevant, and so that is part of our business.
Part of the service we deliver, right? And I think the question from YL, so can you see details what's changed from the attacker by using syslog, is exactly what you just mentioned. In this message, we do not reveal what is exactly changed, right?
Sometimes you have more information, sometimes not. Depends on what is relevant. And in our cybersecurity manual for the SIPROTEC device, for example, you have a list of the syslog message. There you can exactly see what is divulgated and what not.
Okay. So depending on the content, kind of, what we can share and would not. And then ST wants to know if and how we can move to a predictive maintenance by monitoring the syslog.
Can we move to predictive maintenance by monitoring the syslog? Predictive maintenance is a huge things. And maybe here what we can see with some syslog message, but for predictive maintenance we more use the SNMP protocol. What is more related for maintenance related message. The syslog is more related to security event.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you need more information from the device about port open, whatever, so like that, you can also do that with SNMP protocol, another protocol which is also implemented in our device, but more of the focus with for maintenance stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So different approach there.
Yeah.
You could take some of the messages, but we go more a different way and adding or using from, what was it, SMTP, the information, right?
Yes, SNMP,
Yeah.
yes.
SNMP,
yeah.
Thanks. And we had that with the log message. And LN wants to know, in case of an investigation, let's say, for example, a power failure event, where can an independent investigator access the security logs other than from the SIPROTEC relay itself?
Well, in case of a power failure event, or the device is not reachable, but just before you have sent normally a syslog message to a syslog server. So in the syslog server, I have also a trace of all the syslog message. So you can go there to the syslog server and read your journal about the events.
So I don't have to visit each of the protection devices, but just go to the server, right?
Centralized in the server.
Yeah, perfect. Makes it much more comfortable, I think. And then AS wants to know, could we use the Dixie system also for security management of heterogeneous substation with IEDs from multiple vendors, given the IEDs support syslog and TLS?
Dixie is only related to SIPROTEC 5. If you have other IEDs from other vendors, you have to use the tool from this vendor to configure this device with a syslog client or to have encryption protocol in it. SIPROTEC 5 is combined with Dixie 5 and Dixie 5 is not for other vendors.
Yeah, would be like trying to install any Apple feature on an Android device,
Yes,
kind of.
yeah.
But those different IEDs, if they talk syslog, we can collect the data in one syslog server,
Yes,
right?
the syslog
Okay.
server
Yeah.
is there that to collect from all the other devices,
Okay.
providing syslog message in the central way.
Thanks. And then a question around certification manager coming from AA. Could we use one single PC with a single operating system as an RBAC, certificate manager, and security logging server?
Yes, this can be combined. Yeah, you can send the syslog message to a role-based access controller or certificate manager or syslog logging on one PC if you want. So it depends. It depends. Yeah. Depends on the size of your PC, on what's.
That's true.
And also the availability you expect. Normally, it's more recommended to have a role-based access controller, independent machine, and a second. I will talk about that in the next part of the webinar. And so, if you look on the secure substation architecture, we recommend to have it separate, but depends on the size of the substation. We can merge that or put all that on a virtual PC.
Yeah, and still a question of availability, right? If we talk about one single source PC, it might not be redundant, right? Yeah. Okay, and I think we take one or two more questions before we go into a short break, but let's stay with the question for a while. GB remembers that you said we have a test laboratory in the cloud. And if I understand correct, can you give me more details about it and how we can have access to it?
Yes, the SIPROTEC digital twin. This is the application what we have implemented in the cloud. So on our Siemens page, you can find also a link to a demo that you can access from your PC from home, where you can see exactly what I have done during this this presentation, and also then we have also trial versions that you can try to use to get a little bit more convenient with that, but only ask us or your local partner Siemens, and you will immediately get the link to all the information about SIPROTEC digital twin.
Okay. That sounds easy. Just ask and receive the links.
Yeah. And
then HR wants to know, for SIPROTEC to SCC, a direct communication on IEC 61850, can their TLS be enabled, and is this tested?
Yes, SIPROTEC 5 can be connected to via IEC 16150 secured via TLS with SCC, SIGAM SCC. That is running and tested.
All right, thanks. And then the next question comes from PS. Is the syslog client compatible with a CNEC INS syslog server from Siemens DI?
I hope so. Yeah, I think this is. I do not exactly know the software, but syslog is really a quasi standard. What all the simple standard what all the syslog server can read.
All right. Yeah. So if the syslog server from our Siemens DI digital infrastructures colleagues is compatible to the standard, we are compatible with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not compatible. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And now let's see, how many more questions there shall we stand, or shall we keep some for later and give us a bit of a break? I think we take a bit of a break, and just to make sure that you receive answers to all of your questions. It could be that we are running out of answering time here, but then Francois will get homework, because you will get all the answers to your question in a written format in a list later on. So now let's go into, what do you suggest? A little bit less than a 10 minutes break, and we'll see a timer there. 5 minutes before we start again, you will see a timer online. Give your eyes a bit rest, take a coffee if you need one, and then we'll see us soon in a bit more than 5 minutes.
So welcome back. Welcome back to after the break. Hope you enjoy your coffee and we are ready to start the next topic. So as next point in our agenda, we want to talk about role-based access control with LDAP-S. So role-based access control is one key element of the defense in depth for cybersecurity. Let us assume, again, you have your inbuilt, hardened, and protected device. And now you have the door in the wall to access the device with tools like WebUI or Dixie, for example. And in a substation, you have a lot of them. Now we have the people who want to work with, depends on the role they have. So to protect the access, your guardian needs a list of the people and the credential or the password of the people. So this access list is also needed for all the device and will be maintained because password change, user role change, user change. So that is not a practical solution. The solution is a central management of the user access. When someone wants to connect to the device, your guardian will talk with the central management by sending a request with username and password. And the central management sends a response, including the role of this user if he is authorized. This easily explains the magic behind airbag. The way the message is sent and the encryption of the message can be different. Most common name for this protocol are Radius. Radius is the most convenient or deployed protocol for small device, traditionally IT switch, and so where only the user and password is encrypted in the message with pre-shared keys. And LDAP. LDAP, the lightweight directory access protocol, is a much more convenient in the IT world for user, server, PCs. The advantage is that the complete message exchange can be encrypted with server authentication via TLS using certificate signed by a trusted CA. Access control. Also remember a main principle of OT. Availability is much more important. What if the connection to the Active Directory server is not working? First, you have the possibility to define a second Active Directory server. Most of the time, it is a good practice to have a so-called RODC or read-only domain controller, a regular copy of the maintained user list inside the substation. Second measure is that your device can cache the already logged user when LDAP server is available. And the third, last measure is to set an emergency user with all the permission. How to configure airbag with Dixie? As usual, under the menu Safety and Security. First feature is operational safety and access control. After having configured the first or primary server with CAs and search base according to the structure in the Active Directory server, the backup server can be engineered. User cache is already activated by default. And finally, you also can set the emergency account here with Dixie 5. Let us go now more in detail what the standard IEC 62351-8 have defined to avoid different implementation between the OT device provider. LDAP is an abbreviation for Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, and as the name suggests, it is in the core a list of directory entities where each element stores defined attribute of them. The generic workflow is that first the client specifies the element it needs to authenticate through a search string with a specific dialect. Normally, the specific element that is searched by the client is a user the client wants to authenticate with credentials. This process is called binding in LDAP. After a successful binding operation, then the client queries for the role information that the device needs. The second step is receiving role information. It's a little bit different than normal IT world practice, and the mechanism is fully specified in IEC 62351. To fetch the role information of a user, the client first fetches the user certificate attribute of the user. In this particular property, the user, there should be a binary certificate where the user role details are encoded. According to IEC 62351 extensions, the role details are stored in a list minimum mandatory 3 criteria. The first criteria is a user role, of course, and is represented as an integer for a predefined user role in IEC 62351. In example, for engineer role, the value is 2, is defined. Besides these roles, definition of extra role is possible with a range of -1 to -32,000. Then the second criteria that client needs to know is the area of responsibility, abbreviated as AOR. Field this defined in which access criteria that this role is restricted to. It's a string value, and as shown in the example, it can be either local or remote or both. The last criteria is a revision criteria. The integer value 0 is a revision of the year 2011, and the value 1 is a revision of year 2020 of the IEC 62351-8 standard. In SIPROTEC 5, both revisions are supported. Then the access tokens are prepared for a given role. They are encoded in XY09 user certificate and signed by a certificate authority that the organization trusts for the user roles. When the next time device connects to an LDAP server, it will fetch this particular certificate from the target user, verify the certificate signature against the certificate authority, decode the access token from the certificate, and authorize the user according to the role received from it. To have communication security of the connection, the IEC standard said please use TLS with server authentication. LDAP server in this application is required to have server certificate signed by the certificate authority that the organization and also the SIPROTEC 5 device trusts. In this case, the session will be encrypted and protected against various attack vectors that can come from outside of the substation. For the demo, we use SIPROTEC 5 simulated in the digital twin. Users managed centrally within a Microsoft Active Directory using the secure protocol LDAP-S. I will first show you how to log into the device via the web UI remotely, and then log in of the device with an on-site operation panel. In the second step, I will configure LDAP in SIPROTEC 5 with Dixie 5. And finally, we will take a look in the IT environment to set a new user in the Active Directory and create the user certificate with SIGAM Grid Pass. The most convenient tool to create certificate according to IEC 62351-8. Let us see how to log into a device. This device we simulate with digital twin. Again, SIPROTEC digital twin looks like that. We have a digital twin as a cloud application with a browser. We select under register device list the device to be simulated. We click on the button Start Simulation and click on the tile Device. So we have a SIPROTEC 5 relay to be used like a real device. You can use it not only for testing protection feature, but also to check the cybersecurity functions. But before we log in, let us see if our administrator have configured user in the Microsoft Active Directory as LDAP server. Yes, perfect. He activates the Windows server as Active Directory with lightweight directory services. Here we have one or more users, for example, the user James, already configured with a role certificate, with a user certificate having the role security administrator. Let's go to the web UI of SIPROTEC 5. We enter in the browser HTTPS with the IP of the device and with the port 4443. The login window appears. We enter the username James and the password as set in the central Active Directory from our IT and click on Validate. We see that we are logged as user James with a role SecAdmin. We do not have access to some engineering roles related function like operation logs, for example. Let us take a look how airbag is in front of the device is solved. We go back to the digital twin where the local HMI is simulated. The device has a display and a numerical keyboard. We click on the login button. We navigate with the button up and down to the predefined user for local HMI. Select the username viewer, having the same predefined role. We enter the numerical code as defined in the central Active Directory for the predefined user viewer. In the background, the SIPROTEC 4 receives the certificate and of this local HMI user, and now only the read permission according to the viewer roles are enabled. Let us navigate inside with the down button to the protection settings. So with the role viewer, we cannot change settings. That is a perfect realization of need to know cybersecurity principle. We see how easy it is for a user according to this role to log in a device with a central defined username either by the web UI or the front of the device. As next step, we will see how to configure the SIPROTEC device. Let's look in Dixie project. Each individual device has a central place for the cybersecurity related feature. We go to safety and security again, go to the first entry, operational safety and access control. Activate the airbag with LDAP feature. Select the TLS connection CA, or the TLS encrypted LDAP connection between SIPROTEC and the LDAP server. You need the CA that signs the certificate of the LDAP server. When the LDAP server forwards the certificate, SIPROTEC 5 can also check if the certificate is now in SIPROTEC 5 certification authority repository. And as next, select the user root CA in the drop-down menu. That must be the CA that used to issue the user certificate. And under search base, you have to enter the path of the hierarchical structure as defined in the RSA for LDAP by starting with a lower level with the organization unit, here called IC 62341 group, and the DC level, or the domain controller, called in our Active Directory here SIPROTEC test. And finally, we enter the IP address of the Active Directory server as primary server. And for availability reason, you can additionally configure a secondary server. Then right-click on the device level and select Load Security Settings to the device. The connection from Dixie PC to SIPROTEC 5 will be established. And now enter user and password. As user, you need the role SecAdmin or the Siemens Grid Security own role Siemens admin. For example, let us use here James as SecAdmin. If the Ethernet connection from the device to the Active Directory is okay and the user is included in the Active Directory user group with a role ID according to IC 62341, the access control settings are successfully loaded to the device. So with Dixie 5 as well-known SIPROTEC 5 engineering tools, you also can easily set the LDAP configuration. Now, the next topic is the creation of a new user in Active Directory and the creation of a user certificate in CCAM Grid Pass. This is not really the task for you as protection engineer, but let us nevertheless go through it in case in your organization you also have to manage the user certificate centrally. In the IT tool, Microsoft Active Directory, we can add a new user in the organization unit called IC 62341 group. Make a right click and select new and click on user and enter a new username, for example, Martin, and click to next. Enter the new password and click next. Click on properties and under publish certificate, we see that we can add a user certificate. For that, let us use the tool CyCam Grid Pass. CyCam Grid Pass is an ease of use public key infrastructure for OT according to IC 62341. We open the user interface with a browser and log in with username and password to the Grid Pass application. Our task is to create a certificate. We select the tile certificate to be guided in the creation workflow. The select button, Add Certificate. In the first step, we select the certificate profile called Without extended key usage. And we go to step 2. Select in the drop-down the CA used to sign the user certificate, the so-called issuer CA. Remember, it's the same to select as you have configured in Dixie under user root CA. Enter the common name, CN, Martin, for example, same as it is in the Active Directory. And in the step 3, we assigned to the user, Martin, the role engineer from the drop-down list according to IC 62351-8 defined roles. We enter the area of responsibility with *remote. And click on plus. You will see the result in the certificate preview. And go to the next step, the step 4, to define the validity. Here you can select in the calendar the validity of the user certificate. By default, the long validity from the issuer CAs we use. It is up to you to reduce the validity in case, for example, the commissioning engineer is only intended to access to your IDs during this short period. No, you can either validate to create the user certificate or continue to the optional 2 next steps, only for curiosity about what assistance grid passes additionally provide. Let us take a look on step 5 and 6. Step 5, in case a CRL distribution point is used, CRL means certificate revocation list, you can configure it, and the best way is to select in the drop-down menu the entry automatic. Click and go to the last step with next. You can select in the drop-down between RSA and ECC the algorithm for the encoding of the public and private key. And finally, click on Validate to create a certificate for Martin with the role engineer. You can easily find your certificate with a filter entry and then click on Export. We have 2 ways to add the certificate in the Active Directory. First one is automated over the LDAP protocol between SICAM GridPass and the Active Directory by entering the LDAP user using the name of the Windows server and password of the server. The second way is a manual export-import of the certificate. You then export as a .dar file and copy-paste to the Active Directory server, file system, and import with add from file to the corresponding user. And now you can log in to the device web UI using the user Martin. And you can see the difference between the 2 roles. Martin, as engineer, has access to general settings. James, as security administrator, has access to the security-related settings. Now, let's do it practically with a digital twin on my PC. So I need to restart my digital twin here with the button Start Simulation. So in the background, the device will be restarted. And here, when this is restarted, the connection of our VPN will be established again. So during this time, let us take a look on our configuration in Dixie. Under Safety and Security, you have the operational safety and access control. As I explained before, you select role-based access control. And here under LDAP authentication, you can select here in the drop-down the CA signed, where you signed the LDAP certificate for the LDAP secure communication. And here it could be also the same when you create your certificate, your user certificate with the same, signed with the same CA. And in the search base, you have to enter this special dialect with organization unit, the domain controller within this syntax, and the IP address of the primary server. So let us take a look here in our Windows Server. Look to this virtual machine. Here I should type int. And now here you see that on this Active Directory system, you can see all the user and the computer. And the user, for example, we have here the user James. And in this user, you can find this published certificate, what we have created before with SICAM grid pass, and assign it to this user. Here in this certificate, the user role, the aware, and the revision information attributes are included. Okay, for the demonstration, here math is low, the system is slow, and it starts the simulation. So we can also see in our SICAM grid pass the certificate. Here we have the complete list. Clear, we have to log in. And under certificates, for example, you can filter James and found here with this preview the attribute contained in this certificate for the user James. You can find here under area of responsibility the role, SecAdmin, and the aware string. Okay, finally our device is started. So normally I can log to it. Yes, so the connection over VPN is working. So that's okay. Now I can, with Dixie, I can load this configuration to the device by selecting here and right-click, load security setting to device. And now, because I want to activate role-based access control, when Dixie loads this configuration to the device, he will ask me for a user that is already known in the Active Directory. So I need now to enter, for example, the user, what we know here, my James with a password defined. Click on OK. Okay, I think I have entered the wrong password. Sorry again. Secure settings. Okay, and then again. Okay, green successful load security configuration to the device. And normally, to remember what is syslog, you will also see the last logging information. For example, you see there's a little bit more detail that the LDAP authentication has been activated, and EST, and a little bit more detail, but only the detail what you need to be sure that this is all only warnings, but not alerts. Okay, now if I go now back to my logging via the web UI, now I have to log with. I get a new Windows where I have to enter the username, James, and the password. So with the same user, I can log with the same roles from the web UI or from Dixie. And here you get now a little bit the message what is more precise, because we have role-based access control. We know now the message contained that it's the user James who have initiated a remote session with a role security administrator. Now you can really identify with role-based access control the user and his role in the syslog message. Okay, so let's go back to our slides. In summary, for this main topic, role-based access control is simple to activate. Our device needs only the IP of the Active Directory server and the search base. And because it's secured via TLS, you need the CA pattern to validate or to trust the certificate from the LDAP server. Airbag with LDAP is basic for cybersecurity, for subsession protection and automation system. Attacker access are blocked after a certain number of unsuccessful logging. It is possible to have high availability due to the 3 fallback measures: the backup server, cached user, and emergency user. That is recommended in the IEC 62443 and the IEC 62351-9 defines the protocol like LDAP secured by TLS and the role to improve the interoperability. Again, let us have some minutes breaks, and we can see your question and prepare the answer. So some questions. Yeah.
Let's see. Yes,
we have questions.
Once again, I see at least 11, 12, 13 new ones.
Okay. So let's go through.
And let's start with those. 13. And I think right now, it's the easiest way is to start with the news first, because then they refer to what we just heard right now.
Okay.
And keep those for later. And I think we'll once again go for 10 to 12 minutes of question and answers. Will be something like this. So let's see. KK wants to know, when we have two LDAP servers, one via web server, for example, via IT, and the other in the SCMS system in the substation or the control center, so the OT environment. Which directory should be classified as the central user management? And in this case, how are the directories synchronized, especially if we use different ports from SIPROTEC?
Yes, the user, the server in one of the web server from the IT is the main, and the one in the substation in the OT environment is a secondary LDAP server. Normally, in the IT world, the IT manages the primary server and regularly make a copy if they have changed or synchronized with a decentralized read-only domain controllers. And basically, and each have another IP address to be addressed. Yes.
So there's one master and kind of one backup.
And one backup substation. Depends on the size of the substation.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks. And the one that came before was from PS, and PS wants to know, does a SIPROTEC device dynamically check the validity of a certificate by means of OCSP?
This is something what we have on the roadmap to check the validity for using OCSP or CRL. This is something we're working on.
Kind of stay tuned, right, to the SIPROTEC channels. Okay. Then GR handed in cloud computing, then data storage server. If this shall be any kind of question, please specify that again. And then AD wants to know, do we actually need a Windows server as the LDAP server, or can a regular Windows PC act as an LDAP server?
As I know, only a Windows server can act as LDAP server.
I also think it's part of this Windows server package, the functionality.
Yes.
And then DR wants to know, is a certificate required for each SIPROTEC 5 while using LDAP and secure MMS?
You need certificate for LDAP. Sorry, I have to precise. For LDAP, for the SIPROTEC today, we do not need a certificate. We only need to load the CA, what the LDAP server. The LDAP server is, because it's a server authentication, the LDAP server have a certificate and send the certificate to the SIPROTEC. And the SIPROTEC only have to check the CA, if the seal is correct, what I get from the LDAP server.
Okay.
So SIPROTEC do not need a certificate to make the communication secure between SIPROTEC and the LDAP server. For secure MMS, it's will be the next part of the webinar, and there we have the mutual authentication. So we need on both sides, on client and server, a certificate to make the connection secure.
Interesting that we always have a question referring to the next part of the webinar. So that tells me you're on the right track. And you just need to stay tuned to get a more detailed answer on MMS. Now let's go for the next question coming in from DR. And DR wants to know, can different users be in different LDAP organizational units?
That's a good question. I do not test. Maybe I will check that and give you the answer in the chat.
That means you would need 2 different LDAP servers, right? To have them in different.
There are a lot of variation possibility in the IT world with Active Directory server. So I'm not the IT specialist for that, but I can ask for.
Perfect. Yeah. So made you curious, right?
Yeah.
So we had that in the different LDAP organization unit. Then it was something from GR, but it comes with a bit in parts. I see cybersecurity grid substation to SCADA VPN, and I see troubleshooting for OSI layer, and none of it is really a question to me. I think.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, you have an idea?
Maybe clear to make the communication from a substation to a SCADA system. You have the choice. You can do it with traditional, with a VPN. So you need external device like router or VPN router, and then you can encrypt the communication to the control center via these external devices. But the idea of the next webinar is that we secure directly, we encrypt directly the main communication, so the 104 communication or 6150 communication. So an end-to-end without having to use external VPN.
Ah, okay. So
but maybe tuned. That what I think is was
so let's
question
see
oriented.
If we get it more in a question after the next part of the presentation, and then we go for another question from GB. Are these security measures implicit on equipment, or are they optional?
They're always optional. So it's like if you get in your vehicle assurance, if you get full protection or less protection. It's a question of estimation of the risk. Depends on the environment where you are. If you have well-protected environment, you can have more or less options. So but if you want to have the full security, activate all the options. Yeah,
fully understand. Yeah, kind of how on each of our customers the security concept is planned and configured, right? So take as much security as possible and then configure everything, or keep it rather open, something like this, right?
Yeah, normally it's like driving a car. Normally nothing happens, but maybe.
Yeah, you should put the belt on.
Maybe we have a little bit snow and something can.
Yeah.
You have more risk in this context, and that's the same as cybersecurity. You never know when the attacker can be there or not.
That's true. So better stay protected. And the next question came also in from JB, or a different one, because I just see the abbreviations there. This method is okay and works if we have communication with the authentication server. And if we don't, so if the communication is broken, I understand it uses a cache list. In what time is this list cleared? And if the user goes locally and was never authenticated, how can it work? Is it a local user or password defined on the equipment?
Yes, the first part is in what time this list is cleared. The list is not cleared. The list is a buffer. You can set the buffer size. My example was 60. If you have more than 60 user, so 61 will erase the latest. So we do not clear the list.
Okay.
Only if you have more than in the buffer.
So it's kind of an overflow.
Yeah.
First in, first out.
And the second part was okay, if a user was never in this list, we have to wait that we have again the communication to the first or the second server. And if not, the third fallback was hopefully you have configure the emergency user.
Oh, okay.
That was, we mentioned it as a last fallback, use the emergency user.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a really local, it's a local user, but it's defined as emergency user.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not your name is emergency user Dixie. So it's the name. Yeah.
Okay. So let's take one last question. The question is short. Let's see how long the answer will be. Apart from LDAP, is it possible to connect the SIPROTEC devices to an AD server?
Apart from LDAP,
I think now it's
apart from LDAP, we have only the other protocol that is support is Radius. So in the AD server, Active Directory server, in a Windows server, you can also use the Radius protocol. You have to activate a so-called NPS network policy server. So that is a way inside Windows to Windows Active Directory server to also allow IT device that are where the access control is based on Radius.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you can mix between devices that have Radius and devices that have LDAP.
So that's possible.
So it's a configuration topic in the Active Directory server with a so-called NPS, Network Policy Server.
All right, thank you so far. There are still open questions, and this blog will also be answered later on, like your homework. You already know that.
Yeah.
Some questions will be answered. No, all questions will be answered in a written format also. We will have, once again, one short break, a short bio break, for example, for you, get a coffee or sneak in through 1 or 2 mails to be ready again and concentrated again in, I think, about 7 to 8 minutes. That shall be fine. It's then 10 to the full hour here on the clock I see on the wall. So see you in a few minutes right back here in the studio to continue with something around secure IMU and
secure MMS. Yes.
Yeah.
The new feature in SIPROTEC 5.
Yeah. So see you in a few minutes.
So the last point in our agenda is about secure communication. Yes, but let us remember what we have seen up to now. We have seen our device within a secure substation, that we have all the counterpart like to use the syslog we have seen with a syslog server. And we go a little bit in details what is encryption via TLS, because that we need to know for the topic where we have secure communication, like also in the role-based access controls with LDAP. The LDAP is also used for TLS. And now our last chapter is secure communication. And the secure communication is about encryption. So we already introduced TLS as a standard for encryption, where client and server need a certificate, and the CA of the counterpart, remember the picture in the Middle Age with the seals as CA. Encryption based on TLS is used in Dixie protocol with self-signed certificates that can be replaced with user-signed certificate. The web UI via HTTPS with server authentication. Syslog, traditionally not encrypted via UDP, but recommended outside the secure zone with TLS. LDAP-S to get secured via TLS the roles and the validity of the users. And our focus for secure communication will be on the new feature IEC 16150 MMS. Secure means encrypted via TLS. It's also mutual authentication, means both sides have to trust the certificate received. Managing all the certificate manually will take too much effort during substation lifetime. So we have implemented the great feature recommended in IEC 62351-9, the automated certificate management based on the protocol EST, or enrollment over secure transport. Let us see a typical use case for secure communication with 6150 MMS. With IEC 6150 MMS secured communications, the data integrity can be improved. Inside the substation, with poor protection, that can be considered as a secure zone, or let's say where the cyber attack risk is higher than in a secure zone. And outside the substation, with poor protection. Depends on the risk analysis and other protection method in place, or the criticality of the substation. Some definition used in IEC 62351 for secure MMS. The norm differentiates the application security and the transport security. Transport security, clear, means TLS. So we do not use, when we use the port 3782 that is recommended by the norm. For the application security, we talk about A profile or ACSE profile for backward compatibility, or in future E2E or end-to-end security. From a server point of view, or from a SIPROTEC point of view, for example, the TLS is mandatory, and TLS plus A profile is optional. In SIPROTEC 5, we implement transport security with TLS. Now the practical part using SIPROTEC 5 for secure MMS. First, we will show how easy it is to configure SIPROTEC 5 as 650 MMS server secured by TLS according to IC 62334 and the part 3, using Dixie and the web UI to export certificate request file, and we use SICAM grid path to create certificate manually. And then maybe if your responsibility is not only focused on protection device, but also for substation controller like SICAM path or SICAM A1000, we will show how to configure in some steps the SICAM path as 6150 client to communicate encrypted to the SIPROTEC 5. Because it's highly recommended to manage the certificate automatically, SICAM path exclusively gets the certificate over EST. SIPROTEC, again, is configured with Dixie under the same main entry point called Safety and Security. And then we go to Network Access Security. There you can find the topic Secure MMS. For each interface, for example, the integrated maintenance port J or the so-called Ethernet BD plugin module, we can select from non-secure to secure TLS. And second, we select from the drop-down list the CA that we expect from the TLS client from the SICAM path, for example. And then with a right click, and load security setting to device without device restart. The configuration is taken. So the CA seal pattern that you trust from your public infrastructure is loaded to the device CA structure store. And with this configuration over Dixie, the device create for the MMS connection, also called CSR file, with the necessary information about the device and the protocol so that the public infrastructure can create a certificate from the type TLS server for this device. To see what the configuration via Dixie activate in the device, you can use a web UI to check if the CA of the client is in the repository. To go to certificate, certificate authority, secure MMS, the user CA, what is expected for the secure MMS is visible with a serial number. To export the CSR file, you go to certificate, now under requested certificate, and select the port, and export them. The file CSR is available then in your download folder. As next step, you need the SIPROTEC device, a certificate signed by a CA that you have configured in Dixie. Now we use our public key infrastructure, SICAM grid path. And we import by click on import certificate signing request. We import the CSR file. And we sign it with a trusted CA. And then we get the certificate as PEM file ready to be imported for the SIPROTEC 5 device for MMS secure. Now we take this PEM file from the download folder, click on import in the SIPROTEC web UI under certificate in use. So now we have the certificate for the SIPROTEC 5 device and went to the configuration for the MMS client, the counterpart in SICAM PS for a substation controller with a lot of device connected to to a 16150 client, an automatic unwalling is a must-have. So I only want to give you a short overview how CCAMPAS EST communication is to be configured. Under template, you can upload the CA and the certificate for the EST client-server communication. In the CCAMPAS called UI configuration tool, under configuration, you find the protocol IEC62050. There we have an interface called interface SIPROTEC 5, and we navigate to security TLS encryption. We can select between TLS using EST or TLS plus a profile using EST. You remember, SIPROTEC 5 implement TLS, so we have to select TLS using EST only. Additional, the key algorithm can be selected. Usually ECC with a key length of 200 bytes is to select to be compatible with SIPROTEC 5 IEC standard implementation. With this setting, you prepare CCAMPAS to send a certificate signing request via EST to CCAM grid pass as EST server. Some words about automatic certificate creation via EST. CCAMPAS as client request CCAM grid pass EST server to create a certificate for 6150 MMS client for the corresponding device. In CCAM grid pass, you can see under certificate the via EST generated certificate for the device as MMS client. The certificate common name is a practical concatenation of the name of the interface plus the name of the device. The TLS handshake between MMS client and CCAMPAS MMS SIPROTEC server is down successfully. That is the result. The IEC, as a result, the IEC 16150 MMS message are encrypted, and in Wireshark trace, the MMS structure cannot be decoded. So let's do it practically with a digital twin as CCAMPAS running on my PC. So let's see my digital twin device is running. And I also have here my CCAMPAS, maybe people who know a little bit more about automation system like the CCAMPAS recognize that I have here the CCAMPAS having a 6150 client, an interface to the SIPROTEC 4, and here the connection to this device is spending up, so waiting that this device will have TLS communication via 46150. So for that, I have to go to the device via the web UI. Let me connect again via role-based access control because it was activated before. And as security administrator, I have access to the so-called certificates. And I can take a look under certificate in use if the configuration, what I do before, have activate here the device to create a secure MMS certificate. But this one is the one what is created from the device itself, signed by the device itself, and this is what we want to replace by a certificate signing by our public key infrastructure. For that, we go, as explained before, to the tile requested certificate. And here I can then, for the secure MMS, export this so-called CSR file. This file having all the information what is necessary from this device with the serial number of the device and so on. And I click on export, so I get it in my download as the name secure MMS for the port J. And now I can use my SICAM grid pass. Maybe I have to log again. And under certificates, you see here I have the icon to import certificate signing request, to import CSR files. Click on it. I go directly to the download, and today I have here this CSR file, and I open it. This is a CSR file from this device now, and I get here a very small windows in 2 steps. I can create the certificate based on this CSR file. And I select in my public key infrastructure the CA with which I want to sign the certificate. And I do not have to change anything. All these settings coming from the CSR file are already included. Also, the subject alternate name is one attribute what you have to define. The IP of the device that is already included, and you do not have to do anything more. It's already prepared with SICAM Grid Pass. And click OK, and then you will see here that you put in my download the so-called PEM file. So this certificate signed with the CA what I want. And this file I can upload then in my SIPROTEC device via the web UI under certificate in use. Then I can, here with this, I can upload the certificate. I select the PEM file in my download. The PEM file, open it, and now this will be loaded to my device and will be activated in the device. And normally here my SICAM pass are the 6150 client. After some times, you see now the communication is established from the SICAM pass to my device in the cloud via secure MMS. Okay, so I'm finished with the demonstration. Let's go back to a summary. For secure communication, first, a summary. In summary, we have seen that secure communication based on TLS work for all protocols used in SIPROTEC 5, like Dixie, WebUI, syslog, airbag with LDAP, and also now the new IC 6150 MMS Secure. That we implement the great feature recommended in IC 62351-9, the automatic certificate management based on protocol EST. And as summary for the complete workshop webinar, I hope we can give you a good idea what cybersecurity measures are best in class, like SysLock, airbag, and secure communication. And we see it is easy to configure the protection relay with SIPROTEC 5 with Dixie 5. You have learned how TLS works to have an understanding of what is to configure. And with Lego, you also get an impression what are the counterpart tools requested, like a SysLock server, a Windows Active Directory to centralize the user, and how to create and manage certificate easily with CCAM GridPass. I encourage you to use SIPROTEC 5 with SIPROTEC 5, you have a peace of mind with best in class for cybersecurity. So this is the end of my presentation, and I would like to welcome the questions.
Perfect. And once again, time for your questions. And there are already new ones that came in during the presentation. And let's start with the first one I see right on the top of the list. And I think I request from the, yeah, there we are. Thanks. Now we can also, we have the chance to see it right here on the monitor. That helps a lot if my expert can read the question. So let's start with AS wants to know, CCAM GridPass and SIPROTEC 5 do not need DNS for the use of certificates. So the question would be, do CCAM GridPass and SIP5 need DNS for the use of certificates?
No, they do not need DNS.
Okay.
The certificate exchanged via EST. So you have to make the communication between the EST client and server. You can use IP addresses for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And then a question concerning WinCCOA, because MK wants to know, is the secure MMS, oh, now I need to scroll a bit, is the secure MMS possible with WinCCOA and SIPROTEC?
I do not know exactly what WinCCOA implement in our context of subsession and protection context. We are using CCAM SCC based on WinCC, and we have implemented in CCAM SCC the secure MMS part.
Okay. So
I
you think
do not know if the WinCCOA is...
it's probably possible, but we do not know yet.
With CCAM SCC, I can say yes.
Okay.
With WinCCOA, I don't know.
And let's see. And concerning the emergency user, that had been a question from GB. Is the emergency user authenticated if the communication with the server is up?
If the communication to the server, so we are in the
I think we are in the device, right?
Yeah,
emergency user.
Yeah, but if the communication between the SIPROTEC device and the LDAP server is working, the emergency user do not work.
Ah, okay, yeah, because then
it's only
I
in
have
case
the connection,
when,
right?
Yeah, if you have a connection, you have to use your user as user, your name and your password. Perfect.
But a bit referring to that, in the absence of this Active Directory, I think in the absence of Could you please explain the emergency user options? So what can this user do just locally?
The emergency user is you activate a local user for the local HMI, and this user have all the rights.
Okay.
As emergency, you are not blocked. You have an administration or the same role as when you with all the rights. To in this case have the possibility to change everything what is maybe have to be changed. Yeah. And you have the emergency local user, and you have the emergency remote user for Dixie connection.
Oh, okay.
You have to configure two.
Yeah.
Because the one local is only with the digit on the front display, and the Dixie user, there you have normal complex password with special character.
Yeah. Access. Yeah. But to make it clear, this emergency user has full power. He has a lot of rights, but it's available only if no connection is there, right? Yeah. So it's still quite reduced because he has right only on one box. Okay.
Normally, you are then in the substation, and you are
and have a key for it,
and you have no access from outside from attacker to change anything.
Yeah, that's true, because we protect it against network intrusions, and then we have the connection, and if we are locally there, you need a key to enter it, right? Yeah. And then KK wanted to know concerning different IEC regulations. The IEC 6244, now it's hidden in your list. So let's see where it's here. It was a rather late question, I think. So IEC 62443 and IEC 62531.
Yeah.
Can you classify the relation with respect to cybersecurity?
Yeah, the 62443 is a set of regulations that is applicable not only for, it's applicable for every kind of automation control system, not only for substation automation for electrical substation. So it's all the normal requirement for every kind of system. Yeah. And
huge complex.
Yeah. And the 62351, this working group has the focus to make it usable from all the IT possibilities that we have to secure a system, to select, to make a practical catalog of function of method for substation automation context in electrical substation.
Oh, okay.
So to do not have the full story what you have in the IT, because it's too complex. So to focus on some measures, the best of measures, features for of cybersecurity for substation automation.
Okay.
So that
selection,
yes,
right?
that all or for the interoperability is really important that not each provider of device do not know too much possibility what to implement.
Yeah.
And the focus of this 62351 is that, okay, please use EST, use role-based access with the LDAP, and use syslogs that are the main topic so where every manufacturer can focus on, and also that you as customer, you also have device what are interoperable.
Okay. Yeah, that will help if they talk to each other, even from different vendors there. That's true. So it's kind of the selection that's actually currently needed, or that makes sense for the adoption in the digital substation. Thank you. That was quite comprehensive. Then AA wants to know, if the RBAC server is down, I think there it is, the question. If RBAC server is down, is there a way to connect to the SIPROTEC 5 in this case?
As we said, with hopefully the secondary
emergency. Oh no, emergency was the latest,
the emergency was the latest.
Backup,
and normally also during commissioning you log to the device. You have activate the airbag feature. You log to the device, or the some users are hopefully cached.
Okay. So at least some users might be there, even if
last one is the emergency.
Last one emergency. Yeah, that's true. So if users at least logged on, they are still there, right?
Yeah.
And now DR ask a lot of abbreviations, and I think you will understand them because it's definitely not Eastern Standard Time. Let's go. DR wants to know, is CSR required if we use EST?
The certificate signing request, CSR, is required only one time to activate EST in the SIPROTEC device. So, but after you have activated EST in your SIPROTEC device, the SIPROTEC device will internally, you do not have to do it manually. If you activate MMS, he will get via the EST protocol with the SICAM grid pass and get the certificate for MMS. If you want to change the Dixie protocols, the certificate for Dixie, that will also be done in the background via EST. So the first one is only the only one to make CSR manually is the first time with EST.
Okay, thanks. And then a question to the roadmap, because PS wants to know, is by any chance Goose encryption already in the roadmap for SIPROTEC?
Yes, I expect that something is in the roadmap, but Goose encryption is the very high performance. You need Goose have to be fast, and if you put encryption additionally to this message, so you lost time to decrypt, encrypt, and decrypt the messages. So it's something what is in the standard, what will be, where also the IC 62351 group, working group are have defined, but the realization is a little bit tricky because we do not want to lose the advantage of fast Goose messages.
Okay, so if you just have to open all the envelopes to get the information, then you lose time, right? Gain security, but lose time. I think you need to keep the balance there, right?
That is cybersecurity.
You
cannot do what you want without any consequence.
And you need to think of the process, I think, right? Okay, and let's go for the question of FE. In case of a DDoS attack, so I think you know better than me, something with denial of service, but you will explain that.
Denial of service, perfect.
Attack on a SIPROTEC 5 device, as indicated in the Cybersecurity report newsletter. Will this be realized with live contact in any case, or is there the possibility of losing the SIPROTEC device without recognition? That would be poor.
Clear, if you are able to make a denial of service attack that will block the device, so the live contact will be activated, and then so you can recognize that your device is blocked. Normally, the device is only blocked during a short time, and then after the attack, you will be restart.
Oh, okay. So back to life again.
Yeah.
Sounds great. And then GB wants to know, is the emergency user defined locally in a relay or in the authentication server? I'd say in the relay locally, right? If I listened good enough to your presentation. Yes. Yeah, thanks. So locally. Is there also a remote emergency user? Yes, the one in Dixie, right? You mentioned something like that.
Yes.
Perfect. So, and then, oh, I think it's referring to the Goose encryption once again. Isn't Goose on layer 2? And how do you encrypt on this network level? So
yes, Goose is on level 2, and yes, for now, only the MMS of 6150 is secured. So the Goose message are not secured because they must be fast.
Mm-hmm.
So normally you do not send Goose outside the substation. You do not go outside the substation where you have the most risk. Goose message are something what you need between protection relay inside your secure zone.
And that means you need the key to enter it, and then again something to really access the hardware, and so it's already protected, right?
Yeah, and also with the topic of firewall or VLAN, you also can make a better protection with virtual LAN that only that the Goose message are in the LAN, virtual LAN, what you need in the context of your application.
Oh, okay.
So Goose is not developed to send Goose message from one substation to the other over the external LAN.
Okay, so it stays rather locally, and you need to be really close to that to get access to that information, right? Thanks.
Okay, normally, if you need Goose from one substation to the other outside, you can use external router for that. That can forward the layer 2 via routing functions.
And I found one last question in the list that I want to ask you, because KJ wants to know, how will the SIPROTEC 5 IED will know or will ensure that the certificate is issued by the trusted CA before the LDAP server starts the authentication of the user? I think I remember you explained something like this in one of the former webinars with how to establish this first connection, right? But I'll let you read the question.
I'm not sure that you are mixing two things, but I want to explain it like that. So if as I explained, when I have to connect my SIPROTEC as LDAP client to the LDAP server, the certificate, you only have to put the CA, the seal, so the seal pattern, the CA what I have signed the LDAP server. So it's not, maybe I have to contact this person to know exactly what the topic is.
Probably a good idea, right? Yeah, sometimes it helps him to get in direct contact, and then I think we will.
Yeah, maybe the question is clear and the overload is by me.
Yeah, that could also be. So we'll see if you think, no problem during my homework, you will just answer it, and if not, if still the answer is not sufficient, well, now the initials are gone. LR, I think it was, will contact you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that has been it for today with the question and answers we delivered audible. As I already mentioned, yes, we did record this session and you will get access to the recording. You will get additionally access to the questions and even more important to the answers that François already delivered and will deliver in a written format. Thanks a lot. I think the quality of questions, that was just perfect. It was fun for me to ask you these questions, and sometimes it were like tricky questions to the experts. So thanks a lot for that. I think you've seen some of the advantages of a secure substation, and I hope that you understood at least a bit of the concept or of the architecture of the secure substation. So for now, let's say keep safe and secure. I'm looking forward to see you in one of the next webinars. The one around cybersecurity on the CICAM A8000 will happen on the 9th of March. And we have more webinars around electrification and automation in the pipeline. So stay tuned and take care. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.